So multiverses have become very popular in entertainment recently, from the big screen like the MCU, to the small screen like with recent episodes from My Adventures with Superman. The concept for the multiverse has been around for a while, but it seems like it's been popping up everywhere lately, for better or for worse. I think multiverses are one of those tropes that really need to be set up well, and not something writers can just throw in willy-nilly. I think one of the better examples of multiverses was with Spider-Man, both animated and live action.
Peter!
Yeah? Oh, sorry.
Did you mean that? Peter.
We're all calling Peter.
Peter Parker?
Same again, we're all Peter Parker.
This worked well because Spider-Man has had big budget movies on and off for about 20 years now, and they're very strong in the public consciousness. So seeing the 3 live-action Spider-Man come together in the MCU was really hype, and it was interesting to see how these heroes and villains would interact. And I'm excited to see where they take Spider-Man in the MCU, especially now that he's lost everything. Literally everything. And I'm not even really excited for the MCU anymore, but I still want to see more Spider-Man. This also works well for the Spider-Verse movies. Miles is a fun and interesting character to follow, and seeing all these Spider-Men come together is really engaging. Since we've become so familiar with the Spider-Man IP, a lot of people are interested in seeing different versions of Spider-Man, and seeing all the Easter eggs are really fun. It also allows them to get really creative with the visuals, since the different universes have different art styles, keeping the film visually exciting, while also keeping things distinct. And there's a lot of hype around the 3rd movie that's on its way. On the flip side, the MCU has kind of been floundering in my opinion. Like I've said before, there seems to be a serious lack of focus for the MCU. Previous phases would focus on introducing new characters while they build up to something big, like the Avengers crossover movies or fighting Thanos, and they did a great job establishing this. But ever since Endgame, it feels like they've lost their touch. It feels like there's no focus, and the multiverse isn't helping. Personally, I think it was a mistake to keep the 5-year gap between when the snap happened and when it was undone. I know Tony wanted to protect his daughter, but they probably could have found a loophole with time travel to keep her around. I mean, Nebula literally shot herself and she was fine. It can be kind of easy for stories to exploit time travel, and going forward there's a lot the MCU now has to deal with from the fallout, and adding a bunch of other stuff like the multiverse on top causes a lot of convolution. It also doesn't feel like the multiverse has an impact on what's going on in the story. It feels more like a set piece or an excuse to get characters to fight each other. Like the Multiverse of Madness introduced the Illuminati, which were a lot of characters that we wanted to see. It even had Mr. Fantastic being played by John Krasinski, which was a popular fan cast, and then they all get brutally murdered by Wanda in what's arguably a character assassination, which is ironic given all these other characters being assassinated literally, but that's neither here nor there. The point is these characters were introduced just to die, in a cinematic universe that was built on characters. While the multiverse was first introduced in 2016 Doctor Strange, I don't think they've been able to build on the concept in a way that really benefits the story, which I feel like we see a lot when it comes to the implementation of multiverses. Taking another look at Spider-Man, while it is really cool to see these different versions of this character come together, they're also there to serve a purpose. MCU Peter is at his lowest moment after Aunt May died. They're able to relate to Peter in a way that no one else could, and mourn with him over the loss of their own loved ones, and show him that even when everyone forgets who he is, he'll never truly be alone. We even saw the Spider-Men be able to further their own stories while interacting with the MCU, like when Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man was able to redeem himself by saving MJ after he wasn't able to save Gwen in his own universe. It's a powerful scene. There's actual weight and stakes to the other Spider-Mans being there. They're not just there for fan service, although the fan service is really cool, but fan service isn't enough to carry a story, and I feel like sometimes studios overlook that. Like for example, the Flash movie. It's an adaptation of Flashpoint Paradox. DC tried to use this movie to reset their what is basically a mess of a cinematic universe. DC, along with other companies, tried to replicate Marvel's success with their own cinematic universes, but ultimately failed, mostly because they had a tendency to get ahead of themselves and tried to rush to the big crossover, to the point where they failed to set things up properly. They did have great successes with movies like Wonder Woman and Aquaman, but the cinematic universe as a whole couldn't establish its footing. But The Flash didn't really work. They basically threw in the multiverse stuff at the end anyway, and it felt more like a bunch of cameos than really being able to service the story. And on top of that, they're trying to get this movie to carry the DC cinematic universe as a whole, so that's not looking good for them. I think this movie could have worked, but they probably would have done better to use characters like Robert Pattinson Patterson's Batman. Instead, they brought in Michael Keaton's Batman, which is cool, but it probably would have been more effective if they had focused on someone who would be playing Batman moving forward. Keaton could have still been in it while they build on the cinematic universe. They also used digital effects to bring back actors who have passed away, which is pretty controversial to say the least. But again, what does this actually add to the cinematic universe? Overall, I'm not really surprised this movie flopped. Granted, there are a lot of contributing factors to that, Ezra Miller being a big one, but that's an entirely different issue. Ultimately, I don't think The Flash was able to do what they were hoping. It feels more like they were jumping on trends and trying to put a band-aid on the problem rather than really get in there and fix it. Who really knows where this franchise will go in the future, but personally, my expectations are measured. They're bringing in James Gunn, and while he has had success with Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm not sure if he's gonna be able to fix all of this. No offense. The multiverse trope doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. We saw it again in My Adventures with Superman, the most recent Superman cartoon adaptation. I plan on reviewing this show once the season is wrapped up, but I do want to talk about it here since they introduced the multiverse, and in my opinion, a little early. It's still season 1, and they haven't even wrapped up the first arc yet. We still don't know what's going on with Amanda Waller's group, but they're just gonna jump directly into the multiverse. They introduced the League of Lois Lanes, which is another common trope when it comes to the multiverse, like the League of Ricks from Rick and Morty, or the League of Spider-Man. But my main problem with the multiverse in this show, not only that it was introduced too early, but it also doesn't really introduce anything new to the show, or could have been introduced in a different way that felt more natural. Lois finds out that there are versions of Superman that are evil, and then questions if Superman is really good, but that question was already asked in the show. He's being hunted by the government because they don't think he's good, and even Lois herself was questioning if he was really good or not. They also have Lois compare herself to the other Loises, since most of them were able to win a Pulitzer by 21, but she's 23 and is still an intern. But we already had a pretty impactful scene where Lois confides in Clark that she's not happy where she's at in her life right now. She's been an intern for over a year and feels that her career isn't going anywhere, and she doesn't have a good relationship with her father. Do we really need a bunch of Loises to show up and rub it in her face? They also introduced Kryptonite in this episode, but again, this probably could have been introduced a different way. I mean, I'm sure Amanda Waller has some kryptonite, or at least I wouldn't be surprised if she did. This is also the episode where Clark and Lois become an official couple, and them getting swept up into the multiverse shenanigans is what comes between them and their date. But again, that could have been anything. But I did enjoy all the references and Easter eggs. That was fun, but still not really necessary for the story right now. And on top of all of that, this Superman is still being established, but we're already comparing him to other Supermen? He doesn't even have all of his powers yet. He just now started getting super hearing. Maybe they could have slowed down before jumping into evil Superman? Just saying. I feel like the multiverse trope is running into the same problems that superheroes and cinematic universes did. It's not the trope that's necessarily the problem, it's just bad writing. Is it multiverse fatigue, or are people just sick of seeing rushed and poorly handled multiverses? It's the same problem we saw with cinematic universes. Marvel started out strong, but then lost their direction and kinda just threw in the multiverse to try to piece everything together. Warner Brothers tried to catch up to Marvel, so they rushed their cinematic universe, and are now trying to use the multiverse to piece things together, and then others just feel like they're following trends without considering the fact that maybe the story doesn't need it right now. But hey, look at all these crossovers, look at all these references and Easter eggs. That'll get audiences excited, right? But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think? Are you getting tired of the multiverse? Or do you think there's still potential there and it just needs stronger writing? Let me know in the comments below, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching everyone, I really appreciate it. We got quite a bit of fan art this week, so before I go I want to give a quick shout out to them. First there's this one by Garcia XV Legend, who's also a longtime member of the channel, so thank you so much for that, and thanks for the fan art, it's really cool. Next there's this one by Viper's World. It's really great. It's really interesting to see how different artists interpret the two of us. And finally we have Nader Green 7000 with this cool piece of fan art. I really like the way you use the contrasting colors. Again, thank you all so much. It's really awesome that you would take the time out of your day to draw us. Em really appreciates it too, even though she's mostly been behind the scenes working on scripts. And with that, I'd like to thank all of our members: Stutania, Tyrant Carnivore, Shiny Orc Boy, The Rabbit Mancer, General Bolivar, Depth Charge Media, Samaru163, Gabby Hime, Verdant Range, JVR, Hussyman42, Nixel, Phil C, Taylor Ramirez, Caleb Nelson, Dakari the Professor, Equestron, Norman Sweetcream, Dream, Way Beyond Coincidence, Garcia XV Legend, Hunter Rose, 80s Nostalgia Guy, Felix Bam, Soundboy00, Owen Wildish, Player Zero, Kitsune Fiora, Lucas Geist, Data Dine Executive, Jay Draws, Blue Spirit, Bandito Bane, Lil, Meowsers, Sky, Jin KZ, Philip, and Ninja Rex. Thank you all so much for your support. We really appreciate it. If you'd like to become a member, you can hit the join button next to the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this video and like our content, you can leave a like on the video and subscribe. And that part's free. We also have Buy Me Coffee if you want to support us that way. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.